Xbox Game Pass first got me as a subscriber back in 2019 when Gears 5 came out. And ever since then, it's kind of been this great way to try out so many games that I never would have played before and was the best value in gaming. But as of yesterday, we now know that Game Pass has a few new price hikes coming up, new tiers, if you will. And there's some really confusing messaging that just kind of leads me to wondering, is Game Pass still worth it? That's kind of the central theme. But what are these new tier updates? Basically, Xbox Game Pass Core, which is basically Xbox Live. You know, that's what Game Pass Core is. It's like there's 3 different memberships. Core is now $10 a month, or you could do it $75 annually. It was $60 annually. So Game Pass Core didn't change in price, and you get like 41 games in Xbox Live. Now, Xbox Game Pass Standard, which used to be the console Game Pass, this is going to get very confusing, by the way, but it was like the console Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass Standard, which was $11 a month, I think. I can't even find what it was before this, but it's now going to be $15 a month. The difference with Xbox Game Pass Console and Xbox Game Pass Standard is that Standard, while more expensive, it does include Xbox Live. So that is a good, I guess, if you're going to make it cost so much more, at least let it include Live, which it was a weird thing that the console one never did, but now it does. But in exchange for that, and this is the big thing we need to talk about, Standard doesn't include day one releases. And we're going to come back to that because that's very important. And Game Pass Ultimate, which was once, I believe, $17 a month, now is going to be $20 a month. And that is what will get you day one releases. That's going to give you EA Play. That's going to give you cloud gaming. That's going to give you PC Game Pass included, which, by the way, PC Game Pass took a little rise as well. That was $10 a month. Now that's $12 a month. And everything but core, you get a huge catalog, but PC Game Pass is still the best deal because you get day one games if you have a freaking $1,000 PC or whatever and can run these things. That is still going to be your best deal. Game Pass Ultimate, you get it included as well as everything else. But I think the main thing, the 2 things to really mention is that the loss of day one for Game Pass Standard and questioning if this is really worth it. First, the confusing messaging, because Xbox Game Pass has really been touted almost unanimously as the best value in gaming, not necessarily because of its huge catalog, because if you look at PlayStation Plus, which, by the way, these prices kind of align with, you know, like PlayStation Plus Essential is $10, and then Extra is $15, and then their premium option is $18. Now, that premium option, that does not include day one releases. That does not include a PC alternative membership or whatever. It is their premium option, you know, but so it's in line with what other services do with rising prices. Netflix back when Netflix started in 2017, when Game Pass started, I think they've risen like $10, you know, so Game Pass, their overall package has risen by 5. It's just something that subscription services are going to do over time, unfortunately. The thing that is very confusing, as Xbox does a lot, and I'd be very curious to find out if you disagree with this, confusing messaging. Game Pass was known as the best value in gaming because of the day one releases. It wasn't the catalog. It wasn't even necessarily the price. The price made it worth it because of that big, bold letters, day one on Game Pass. And now Game Pass Standard doesn't promise that. For the console peeps, again, if you're PC, you're great. If you don't care about cloud gaming, you are living it up. You don't have to worry about it. But if you're a console person like me, I mean, I use Ultimate, so it's fine. But for those that don't want to do Ultimate for whatever reason, you get Xbox Live included with your Game Pass Standard now, which I think that was a great move to clear up that confusion, because that's the only reason I had Ultimate. Ultimate, the only reason I had it was just so I could have Xbox Live and Game Pass at the same time, because it was basically the same price. So it's just like a bundle deal. But now Game Pass Standard, they made that confusion out of the way in exchange for a new confusion, which is you don't get day ones. The only way you get day ones is if you're an Ultimate member, if you're a console person. Only Ultimate. So they need to clear up that understanding a lot more. And they can't say, a case-by-case basis. See, the thing that we see also in the whole like Xbox Wire and other spots is that Xbox Game Pass Standard is still going to include very recent games, but we don't know how long before like newer games will be added. Do Ultimate members get it day one, and then Game Pass Standard people, do they get it 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later? Make that definitive. And that will solve a lot of these confusions. Make that clear, put that in the description and say, we'll get access to our first party titles, or maybe even other things that came to Game Pass 6 months later or a year later. Don't say case by case, because that is going to be so frustrating to keep getting from Xbox with this confusing messaging. But the bigger question, is Game Pass still worth it? See, I see a lot of folks like canceling their memberships. I refuse to take this raise. And for me, I've always said Game Pass was maybe worth it as long as it didn't cost more than 3 AAA games a year, which is $210 by these new standards. Game Pass Ultimate, if you want those day one releases, that is now $240 a year before tax. They need to do 3 things, roughly, to keep me like wanting to invest in Xbox Game Pass. I did a video way back that was explaining like, that's kind of how I feel being a Game Pass subscriber. It doesn't feel like just I am getting value. It also feels like I'm investing in Xbox keeping this service running and letting me play all these games. Like, it kind of makes me feel like I'm investing in everything that they keep when they acquire these teams or start new initiatives or whatever. Like, being a Game Pass person has always felt like I'm investing in these initiatives. And so they need to have at least 5 first-party games a year. 5. Not 4, like they said. Even though 4 is the minimum, I want to say 5 because of how many teams they have now. And having 5 gives a good deal of choice, too. Yes, I know there's other second party or first party or third party things that are going to come to the service, like Stalker 2 and like Wulong did way back and so on. But I need at least those first parties to keep churning out games. And this year, you know, if everything's on schedule, they did that with 6 games between Hellblade 2, Towerborn, Indiana Jones, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Avowed, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and Age of Mythology. Like, that's a lot. That's more than 5 right there. And then next year, so far, we have Doom the Dark Ages, Fable, and South of Midnight. So we'll have to wait and see what comes out next year. But the second thing that I think a lot of people are not going to bring up, if you are an Ultimate member specifically, you need to get discounted DLC. I'm not talking about like 10%. I'm talking about like 25, maybe more. DLC needs to be severely discounted for Ultimate members because that is part of the experience that they should be getting when Starfield Shattered Space comes out. Game Pass members, I think they get a discount on that, maybe 10%, maybe 15, you know, which is fine, but Game Pass members need to feel like they are getting the Gears 5 Hivebusters thing, where Gears 5 Hivebusters was just available to Game Pass Ultimate members. Even partners like Sega are letting the Persona 3 Reload DLC available to Game Pass Ultimate members. That needs to be a thing for the first party stuff. When Starfield Shattered Space and Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred, Game Pass members need to feel like, yeah, because you are investing in our first parties, you get to play even their DLC discounted. That's number 2. And number 3, keep the not free-to-play live service games going, like, and which I think they do great with. You know, Sea of Thieves, Season 13, keep me wanting to play Sea of Thieves, and, you know, I don't have to necessarily buy this game because I have Game Pass, so, and they keep updating it, so there's a reason for me to stick around. Fallout 76, they have like Skyline coming up. And if Halo Infinite wasn't a free-to-play game. and finally, the 4th thing that, this isn't really a 4th thing, but it's something I've said for ages. Get the freaking Activision Blizzard games on Game Pass already. One of my patrons, JoeySTRIKE, shout out to you, Joey, like, he brought up this thing that I totally forgot. Whenever Xbox presents bad news like this, it is very shortly or within the month followed by good news. And I'm hoping that is the case here and that this is the sign that the Activision Blizzard games are finally going to get on the service. And I kind of wish they did it about the same time to help soften the blow, but I'm hoping this means that finally, after freaking 9 months of this deal closing, the Activision Blizzard back catalog is finally going to start getting, like, even if it's bit by bit, it's finally getting onto the service. There's rumors that, like, Modern Warfare 3 is about to get on this month, and maybe Crash Bandicoot, the trilogy, whatever, next month. I hope it's a bit chunkier than just one game at a time, but I think this is a good sign of that. So we've lost a handful of teams at Xbox First Party, but there is still 30 teams, not studios, 30 teams working at Xbox and hopefully going to release something every 5 years. And if that's the case, that averages out to be around 6 games a year. So that makes me really want to do this Xbox Game Pass math video that I've kind of alluded to for a while to explain how that is both feasible for Xbox and profitable. And if that works out in that way, I'll still find Game Pass Ultimate worth it. I don't know about Xbox Game Pass Standard. That is the debate. They really need to clear up the messaging behind that. It's still a big catalog of going from like 40 games on core to over 400 on standard, but you don't get that day one. Is that day one a very big problem? Like, that's where the conversation I want to follow, and stay tuned for that Game Pass video or check out how Halo could scale down its development. This all is a big turning train for Xbox. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.